It is preparing. Everyone should receive a notice
Yep.
that this is being live streamed.
All right, so we're ready to go. It is 1:10, and I officially open the business meeting for the Illinois Conference for 2021. Thank you for being here. We're going to open with a couple things that are not on the agenda. The first of which is, I understand, I have not been looking at the news today, but I understand there has been a verdict in Kenosha. I don't know any of the details and don't wish to take time to talk about that during this meeting, but either way, there's going to be people not happy. So I think it's probably appropriate that we begin in prayer. I'm going to ask our conference minister, Reverend Molly Carlson, to open us in prayer relative to the Kenosha verdict.
Let us pray. Oh God, our hearts are full. We have lived the ups and downs of this journey, and we are so aware of the sensitivities that this brings up. God, we pray for all of those involved. Particularly, we pray for the community of Kenosha, that it may be safe and secure and find a path towards hopefulness. God, we pray for our siblings in Christ throughout the world, and particularly in this near neighbor, that we struggle with the ways that our courts work and sometimes seem to not work. And God, we just ask your presence among us, that you will guide us and keep us, that you will keep us on the path of compassion, of justice, of care, and of liberty. We pray all this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. So welcome to everybody. We're glad you're here. I hope you've been able to participate in some of the activities of this week. We've had a good week. We've had some really great worship opportunities, book studies, panel discussions, and great 8 morning prayers by a number of our pastors. I particularly took note today of Marilyn Pagan Banks and her message, perfection is not required, faith is required. And as we meet and as we go through the business of the conference, I am reminded that we're never perfect. We do the best we can. And there are times when we just fail because we're humans, but our faith is what gets us through. So I just hope that as we go through today, that you will be joining with us, not looking for perfection, but using our faith to work together. And as our theme for this year, being stronger together. If you haven't seen the excellent worship service that we had on Tuesday night, I would encourage you to go back and look at that. It's available on YouTube. And I would also encourage you to stay around after the service today, 4:30. John Dorhauer, our general minister for the United Church of Christ, will be presenting a keynote address. And then tomorrow after at 12 o'clock, we'll have another great worship service with Reverend Jesse Knox. So we're looking forward to all of that. I want to start the meeting today. This is not on the agenda, but I thought this would be appropriate. Adam Weber, again, one of our pastors from Prairie Association, is quite a talented person. And I thought this probably would be appropriate for church today, so as well as for our business meeting. So bear with me as I try to share the screen and do it properly.
Hello, friends. I'm Adam Brooks Weber, pastor of this church, the Open Prairie United Church of Christ in Princeton, Illinois. With the falling of the leaves, I've been thinking a lot about change. As you know, as all church leaders know, churches can be extremely resistant to change. Maybe you know the old parody of Onward Christian Soldiers. Like a tortoise moves the Church of God. Brothers, we are treading where we've always trod. My own Open Prairie Church is actually pretty open to change. But other churches that I've served have not been so flexible. I've written a song about this, which I'd like to share with you. It's a little rebellious and a little pachelbellious, and it goes like this. I can't change their minds. I can't change their hearts. I can't change their horrible old hymnal or the stupid time their service starts. How like a turtle moves the Church of God, obtusely treading where we've always trod. On we plod. I am stuck with the ugly chalice given by someone's great Aunt Mary. I am stuck with the ugly color of the carpet in the sanctuary. That organ sounds like bagpipes played off key. How does that bring us nearer, my God, to thee? Don't ask me. I could change the church constitution, which turns out to be totally flawed. All it takes is a supermajority, plus a major act of God. I could change a burned out bulb for one that's new. Unless Aunt Mary gave us that old bulb too, then no can do. Maybe this is just a taste of Jesus' bitter cup. He tried to change his people's hearts, they chose to nail him up. Or maybe I just need to change my own ambitious key. The only thing I need to change is not the church, but me. Could it be? 'Cause I can't fix the world. I can't make all the fighting cease. I can't take apart injustice. I can't put together peace. All I can do is try my little best. And in God's hands I know that all the rest shall be blessed. Well, sure, I like to think of myself as a change agent in church, but that's really only half the story. Sometimes I work for change, but at other times, I hate change as much as the next person. I like my Christmas carols unchanged, traditional words, the words I learned around the piano when I was a child. And I like to hear the nativity stories read out in the King James Version, the words that echoed in the darkened church at the midnight service when I was a child. The curmudgeon in me flares up at any attempt to change those mysterious and weighty words. Or to take a more practical example, my church has recently dwindled to the point where we can no longer afford a church secretary. That's a change I really hate. I wish sometimes that I could click my heels 3 times and go back to a time when we were larger and more prosperous. Of course, there are 2 problems with that. First of all, you can't go back, and second of all, the past wasn't really as rosy as I like to remember it. But the plain fact is that my church is stuck with some changes that I don't like. And if I'm being honest, it's not just that I dislike these changes, I fear them. They make me anxious. I think, where will this all end? There's a line in the hymn, "Enter, rejoice, and come in." Maybe you know it. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change, but that's really just whistling in the dark, because we're all afraid of change. As church leaders, we're in this conflicted position of sometimes desiring change and at the same time fearing change. I can't tell you what to do about that, but I am pretty sure that the fear part is a mistake. Jesus said, "Which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life?" Which is an annoying thing to say, but it's not wrong. God is with us in all our adventures, both when we're trying to change things and when we're trying to conserve things. So, this is my prayer today. Dear God, sometimes I want things to change, and other times I want things to stay the same. And I know that I'm not always going to get my own way on either count. But I will follow your light wherever it leads. And I know that when I do, and when I take the adventure that comes, you will be with me. And so, whether I win or whether I lose, I have nothing to fear. Amen.
Adam is with us today. Adam, thank you very much for this excellent presentation. I've seen your stuff before, and you always speak to us in a different way. We don't need to be afraid of change, but we do need to understand that that's the only constant is change. So we're right at 90 participants right now, which means as I read through the representation that we have on quorum, we have a dilemma right off the bat because I have a distinctly 2 different things. Let me see if I can, hold on just a second.
There are a number of people that have 2 participants on one screen.
you.
I don't know if we have 10 that have that, but I know we at least have some.
Yeah, if you are on the call with 2 people on the or more than one delegate on the call, would you put something in the chat that tells us that, and we're going to give you instructions on how you can vote as well. Please put your names in there and just let us know that the 2 people that are in, that 2 or more people that are on the call. And as we do that, I'm going to go ahead and continue with a couple things that we can do. Want to let you know that I have an official registrar report from our conference registrar, Naomi Else. I'll read it to you. It's a lot faster than trying to figure out how to get it on screen. The Illinois Conference Registrar shows that all 5 associations of the Illinois Conference are represented at the 57th annual meeting of the conference. There are a total of 179 voting members registered, 102 ordained ministers, 6 licensed ministers, 1 commissioned minister, 19 retired ministers, 46 lay adult delegates, 2 lay youth delegates, and 3 conference council members. There is a quorum established which satisfies the constitutional requirements. Now, I am going to be the very first to say that I am not a parliamentarian, which is why we have a parliamentarian today with us. And even the question of whether you appoint a parliamentarian or whether they voted is one of the things that has been discussed this week. One of the fun things about the Illinois Conference is we have discussions on a lot of things that like this, and agree quite often not to agree that we can't agree on quite often as well. So we're going to continue to research this behind the scenes. As we do that, we've got a couple additional things that I want to do. But if you have somebody you know is not on, and you know they're from your church, or somebody that you know is the delegate, would you mind sending them a text? Would you mind picking up the phone if necessary and call them saying, where are you? We need you here. We need a quorum. And let's do what we can to make sure we have a quorum so that we can do some of the business of the church today. Because my opinion is, and we'll meet the parliamentarian in just a minute, that we need to have 100 on the call before we can take a vote. John Prane, would you agree with that as Vice President?
That's my reading of the Constitution, but I defer to you and the parliamentarian.
Okay, and so by way of introduction, I'm changing the agenda just a little bit since we don't have. I want to introduce you to our parliamentarian for this year. In the past, we have hired parliamentarians from outside the denomination. This year, we chose because we felt like we had an excellent person qualified within the conference. Marva Campbell Pruitt is an ordained UCC deacon. She stepped into the combined roles as the village clerk for the village and school board members of the Community Consolidated School District 168 of Sauk Village. She serves both boards with dignity and professionalism. In 2014, Marva became a member of Grace United Church of Christ, a new church start under the leadership of Reverend Melody Seaton. Marva is a past moderator with the Eastern Association. She served on the planning committee for the Eastern fall and spring meetings, on the Illinois Conference annual celebrations, and on the Illinois Conference. Marva is the designated Open Meeting Act officers, ensuring effective meetings in accord with the Illinois mandates. She has presided on numerous committees and organizations where Robert's Rules of Orders and parliamentary procedures are followed. She is a member of the National Association of Parliamentarians and is studying to become a registered parliamentarian. So we're at 93 people I'm seeing right now. Marva, wave so we can see you. I'm in speaker view, so I can't see anybody but myself, and that's not a pretty picture. So, Marva, what's your opinion? We have a quorum by what the registrar says, but you have a copy of the Constitution, as does John and myself. What's your opinion on whether we can do any voting today?
If you do not have a quorum, then you can discuss whatever matter that's on your agenda. However, you cannot take action on any of those items until a quorum exists.
Thank you, Mara. Part of the parliamentary procedure is that the chair does not have to take the advice of the parliamentarian. That is part of the parliamentary procedure. Marva, can you say yes for me?
That is correct.
Thank you. I'm not going to do that. Marva is there for a reason. we've discussed this already, by the way, so this is not a fresh discussion. And although I have the right as chair to say, nope, let's go ahead and do this, I don't think it's appropriate. So until and according to what was put in the notes a second ago, we have 93 people. So again, if you could help us by making sure you contact some people who might be able to join us over the next few minutes, we can do that. In the meantime, however, we still have a few things we can do. One of the things that we're going to do in just a minute is to look at Susan, I see your note about, is it the number of people for which we are waiting or the percentage of the churches? It's not percentage of churches. We have the churches from the different associations. The Constitution says, just to read it to you, that we have to have 100 people to have a quorum. And the gray area is the Constitution doesn't say they have to be in the meeting, but it says they have to be registered. And but the interpretation is they have to be in the meeting, and that would make sense to me. So at the moment, we're going to hold off on doing any voting. And we don't have any major voting planned for today. We did have some voting planned, but we can work around that. So thank you for the question. But what I would like to do today, quite often right before these meetings start, something comes up that you didn't expect. Well, that happened this week. And I will be the first to say that I have been a member of the United Church of Christ since 1996. That's when I joined the Moni Church, right after I met my now wife. And I didn't even know what the UCC was at that point. But this week we had somebody pass away who was the conference minister from 1974 to 1974 to 1994 for a period of 20 years. And I want to read, he passed away, and I want to read the bio that was published by the Washington Post on him this week and make a couple of comments. So I'm going to take a point of privilege as conference president to do that, because I think this was a very special person and deserves our time this afternoon. And that person is Reverend W. Sterling Gray. W. Sterling Gray, a minister who became the first African-American to lead the National Council of Churches and who used his pulpit for decades in pursuit of racial and social justice, died November 14th at his home in Flossmoor, Illinois. He was 94. He became nationally known in 1972 when he was installed as president of the organization formerly known as the National Council of Churches of Christ in the USA, the largest ecumenical assembly in the country. Ebony Magazine named him one of the most influential African Americans in the United States. In the 1966 statement, and I do remember this because I was 15 at the time and very involved, Reverend Carey and his colleagues declared themselves deeply disturbed about the crisis brought among our country by historic distortions of important human realities in the controversy about Black power. What we see shining through the variety of rhetoric is not anything new, but the same old problem of power and race, which has faced our beloved country since 1619. A statement, a sweeping manifesto addressing U.S. leaders, white clergy, African Americans, and the media on the future of race relations and racial justice had been cited as a founding document of the Black liberation theology. William Sterling Carey, one of 8 children, was born in Plainfield, New Jersey on August 10th, 1927. His father was a real estate broker who was active in the YMCA, the NAACP, and religious organizations. Reverend Carey led the Metropolitan New York Conference of the United Church of Christ, a role similar to that of a bishop, before becoming president of the National Councils of Churches. 2 years later, in 1974, he was elected conference minister of the Illinois Conference of the United Church of Christ, the first Black person named a UCC minister. He continued to lead the UCC's third largest conference with nearly 250 churches until his retirement in 1994. Besides his daughter of Chicago, Reverend Carey's survivors include his wife of 68 years, the former Marie Phillips of Flossmoor, 3 other children, Patricia Carey, Denise Carey, both of Flossmoor, and W. Sterling Carey of Olympia Fields, Illinois, 2 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. Reverend Carey told NPR in 2008, and I've listened to that recording, that he thought American society had taken tremendous strides since he and his colleagues made their 1966 statement on Black power. This is a different world, he said in that interview, but it is still a world in need of perfection. There are all kinds of conditions that cry out for addressing by the nation, which are not being dealt with. So we celebrate the progress, but we recognize there is a long, long way for this nation to go if it's truly to be the land of the free and the home of that brave. We are grateful for his service to his church, to his people, to our people, to all of us. Would you bow with me for a very quick word of prayer? Lord, we come to celebrate one of the saints of the church, one of the saints of our church, who gave his all for all. We pray that today you would raise the songs of the angels, that everyone would hear us together as we cry out in grief because we've lost one of our own, but also in joyous celebration because he's gone to be with you. Thank you for his life and for his witness. Bless his family and comfort them, and may we also comfort them as well. In your name we pray. Amen. I think it was important to recognize him. We had an necrology service a couple of days ago, but we didn't have time to properly prepare for this gentleman who served the church in so many different ways, served his country in so many different ways, and served his people in so many different ways. So thank you for that. At this time, I'd like to, we're getting closer, by the way. At this time, I'd like to ask Kim to, or Jan, excuse me, to share with us the video on Elmhurst College. And then right after that, we're going to do a test vote.
David, we're going to flip really quickly and share the celebrations video because of whatever problem I'm having here, that's all I have. So we'll share the celebrations video and bring Elmhurst College later, okay?
That'll be fine. And if I said Gray, I meant Sterling Carey. I apologize. I have his name right here. But a little tongue slip there. W. Sterling Carey. Go ahead, Jana.
Here we go. I hope it works.
All right. Very good. And again, if we were in person, we'd be able to do a lot of different things, but unfortunately, this is the best we can do with this time. But thanks again to those on the annual planning committee and Sarah Lowerbeck, who have worked so hard to get this information together for us and have done a great job of getting this information to us. So we're going to have a little fun. We're getting closer. We're up to 97. So I invite you to send an email, pick a phone call, send a text to 3 more people. And Sarah, if you're out there listening to me, send a reminder to the whole registered folks real quick that we need 3 more people so we can have a quorum. But we're going to go ahead and do our first vote anyway. We want to test the system. We want to test your ability to vote. So we're going to have a test vote in a few minutes or just a few seconds. You're going to see a poll come up. It's a very important question. Because we don't have 100, it's not binding. So you don't have to worry about the repercussions of it. But you have 2 options. You can vote for either the first one or the second one. In our voting today, most of your voting when we do vote will be yes or no, but this first one is not. It's a more important question. I thought long and hard about it. I'm not sure yet how I'm going to vote. And so we're at 98, so we're getting closer. So this is the question. Are we ready, Jana or Sarah?
Yes.
All right, so let's put the question up. I want you to just, we'll put the question up, let you think about it for just a second, and then we'd ask you to vote. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? You have a chance to look at that. Please go ahead and vote. And we're going to allow about 60 seconds on all votes so that we have plenty of time. I don't want to short anybody out.
Please explain phone voting.
Oh, thank you, Mark. Mark, you're going to have to text Jana. Jana, would you give him your phone number? Can you put it in the chat? Thank you, Mark. We did forget about that.
I can't see the chat.
Mark, my phone
Yep.
number is 847 293
Mm-hmm.
1108.
So far, we've had 78 people vote out of the 96 we have in the room. You don't have to vote. You can abstain. By not voting, you are abstaining. And Mark, in your case, if you would rather just verbally tell us instead of putting in the chat, you can do that as well. Is there anybody else on the phone besides Mark? Co-host, by the way, cannot vote. If we're in a pinch, we could, but we're not voting because it makes it a little more difficult. We'd have to do the same thing, though. We'd have to send a chat to Jana.
David, I'm sharing the screen with my wife, and I tried to vote for her on the text. Did that count? I voted myself in the poll, and she voted on the text.
Perfect. That's exactly what we'd like you to do. Thank you, Grant. All right, so our first vote is over. Officially, the chicken has won. The chicken came first, not the egg. We had 6, let's see, I share results. I can do that. Everybody able to see the results? 60% of the votes were for the chicken and 32 were for the egg. Jana, you have a raised hand?
Yes, I just wanted to let whomever it was that was speaking that his wife voted via text. That text has not arrived to me.
Okay, that was Grant Speece.
Okay, so I have no text that has come into that yet.
Okay, I used the chat. What am I supposed to do?
Look in the, if you will look in the, if you want to vote, please use 847-293-1108, which is my text message.
Oh, I can do that.
Okay, did you get the number?
I'm no.
Area code 847.
It's in the chat.
Yep, 293-1108.
Okay.
Okay, you go ahead and text that.
Okay.
Got it. Chicken. Chicken
and
still wins.
And the reason, by the way, that we're doing that is for those that are, we don't have any way of knowing how you're voting. And if you text Jana, the only one who will know how you voted will be Jana. And she has promised not to tell.
Bethany hasn't texted yet. She is doing it right now. But
Okay, that's fine.
the chat is a direct message to the conference, so no one else can read anything I chat the way it's set up.
Okay. Okay.
There's the number.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Jana, are you entering those in or we just manually add those?
We just manually we verbally add those and they have to be manually recorded.
Perfect.
It has to be, if you are going to use the chat for any reason, and you want someone to see it, it can't go directly to the conference. It will go to everyone. Because there are only certain ones of us who can read the Illinois conference chat. That's a private chat line for whomever is on the line, who's ever in Zoom as the Illinois conference.
And so if you vote until I hit end results, you can change your vote. And obviously some of you did as well. And so that makes a difference as well. And the people who do not vote, their votes do not count at all. They don't affect the quorum either. As long as we have a quorum, it doesn't make any difference how many people vote. Motion to reconsider. Thank you, Hank. So what we can do is one more time, we're at 97. We're getting very close. So we're over 100 now.
But we also have 3 that are on screens with 2 people. So that puts us at 100, David.
So we are at 100. So we're going to move ahead quickly while we still have it. Please don't leave us and continue to ask people to join us. So the first order of business that I would like to do would be the appointment of the parliamentarian. We determined, even though some of us believe we don't have to vote on that, we determined the best way to do would be to go ahead and vote on it. Two years ago, I checked with Chuck Maney and the parliamentarian was appointed and not voted, but this year we're going to vote on it. So the question is shall Marva Pruitt be appointed parliamentarian? That is the first question that we're going to actually do a poll, and this poll will count. So again, we'd ask you to vote if possible. If you choose to abstain, that is your business. If there's 2 of you on the call, or if you're on the phone, please use the number that Janet gave you a few minutes ago. And again, some of us who are on the Illinois conference do not get to vote, but as long as we have a majority, we're not going to worry about that. So let's go ahead and put the poll up. We'll give everybody 60 seconds before we cut it off. Shall Marva Pruitt be appointed parliamentarian is the question. Got that, Jana?
No, David, I don't. I'm not showing that question. Hold on. I'm not showing that question anywhere, David.
Sarah, are you there?
There we go. Got it. Got it.
Okay, thank you.
Launch. Got it.
All right.
Sorry, I was on a phone call.
If you would go ahead and vote, that would be great. Couple more seconds, about 10 more seconds. If you haven't voted, please do. Okay, we're closing the voting. And we have 99% yes, plus the votes that are in the chat. I'll give Jana just a second to give us those as well. We have 81 yes and 1 no.
David, I have 85 with the 4 that texted in.
Okay, very good. So we have 85 yes and 1 no. We are, by the way, recording this meeting for a purpose because we're going to be using this to make our minutes. Our secretary is not able to be with us today. So Marva Pruitt is appointed parliamentarian. Thank you very much for that. Oops, I want to share the results quickly. You can see the results. Again, we're trying to do this to be as transparent as possible so that you see exactly what we're seeing here as well.
David,
All right.
I hate to be a pain. I am not now. Hold it. It may have just I think I'm able to vote now. Hang on. I couldn't get her on a texting system, so hang on.
Okay, that's okay, Mark. I'll wait. We can add that vote to it. Go ahead, and I've already closed the panel just because it's closed.
What was the question again? Just give it to me so I can test the system.
Shall Marva Pruitt be elected parliamentarian for this meeting? And that would be a yes or a no.
Thank you. I'll try to figure this out.
I think I mentioned at the beginning, instructions that were sent out, you were given a drive to go to. All the documents that we'll be talking about today and tomorrow are in that drive. You can call them up if you'd like. Whenever absolutely necessary, we'll try to put them on the share screen. But in the interest of keeping the meeting going, we tried to make these available to you ahead of time to review.
I've got it. It went through to her.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Jan, I see your hand again.
No, my hand just won't go down, David.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There we go.
All right, thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda itself. You've seen the agenda. We are, in terms of business items, we're going to do our best to stay on course with the business items in order. We may change videos around here and there just to fill in time, but the important thing for us is to make sure that the business agenda is met. Are there any questions? This agenda was presented to you. If not, I need a motion to accept the agenda from the floor, and I cannot see the screen, so somebody will have to help me, John.
I move that we accept the agenda.
Hank Fairman, was that you?
No, it's Alex Molzai.
Alex, okay, thank you.
Hank, second.
Hank seconded. Thank you. Any discussion, questions, comments, additions?
Call the question.
If not, let's go ahead and put that question as approval of agenda. And you can go ahead and start the voting now. And again, I'm going to try to allow 1 minute for everything.
Bethany wants to make sure Jenna's getting her texts. I don't think.
What is her number?
234-808-2443.
Yes, I am. Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, and so I'll give it about 10 more seconds. And as we're doing that, I'll remind you that when you call the question, we have to have a vote on that. So please do not call the question. I didn't hear that last call question, so I wasn't able to vote on that. But please don't do it unless it's absolutely necessary. I promise you I will keep things moving. All right, so we're going to end the poll and add to it the manual votes that we got through the chat. We have 77 for and 1 against. Approval of the agenda. And Jana, do you have a total for what you have?
Yes, I have 83 for total.
83 for total and none, oh, just the one that we have here again?
And one against, yes.
Okay, let me share those results. Again, you won't see the 83 because those are manually added. But for the minutes, because we're taping this, I want to give that number 83 for, 1 against, 99%. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for June 27, 2020 annual celebration. That was COVID, if you'll remember. That was a pretty brief meeting. It was done on, Chuck, I believe, in about 2 hours. And we weren't able to have much input because that was our first go around with doing this all by Zoom. And we were just tickled pink to have a meeting. And we got the officers elected, which is what Chuck wanted because he wanted to get out of there. Right, Chuck? So, but we did have minutes for that. They're in the drive. And again, Sarah has put the link to the drive on the chat if you want to go look at them. Any of these, anything else during the meeting. But I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the Mark Binder. Thank you. And a second for that.
This is Rudra Dunsly, second.
Thank you, Rudra. Any discussion, changes, or additions? Seeing or hearing none, I would ask for the vote on the approval of the June 27th, 2020 minutes. Yes would mean you accept the minutes, and no would mean you don't. Again, we'll give it about 20 more seconds. We appreciate your patience today, by the way. Okay. So we have, what is your vote, Jana?
I have 82 yes, 1 no.
Okay, so we had 77 vote on the poll and 5 voting consistently on the chat. Thank you very much for that. This motion passes as well. Next motion on the floor is the approval of the minutes for the special meeting that we held in November of last year. This was the follow-up meeting primarily to elect delegates for the General Synod. There were a couple of other items of business handled in that meeting as well. I would entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
This is Rudra Dunsly. I move we accept the minutes.
Thank you, Rudra. Is there a second to that?
Second, Roger.
Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second. Who was that?
Peg Fallman, I second.
Okay, thank you. I'm not able to see you, so you will have to speak up. So Paul, I apologize for that in advance, but any discussion additions to the motion, to that motion? If not, I'll ask for that motion to be put on the poll for us to vote on. Do you approve the minutes of the special meeting in November 2020? Please vote now. We are not unlike the National Synod that I attended. This is the 4th one this year. So no matter what the question is, there will always be somebody who says no. That's not good or bad. It keeps everything in check.
Years ago, David, there was a group I was in where the secretary always voted no to all motions because he didn't like writing the word unanimous in the minutes.
Thank you, Mark. All right, about 10 more seconds. Polls have closed. Jana?
We
Is that yours?
have 84 yes, 1 no.
Okay, so that motion passes as well. Now, folks, we've got some other things to vote on in a few minutes, so please stay with us. but this was a good step in the right direction for us to get to the next step. We're getting ready to have a TPERC video report from our Reverend Michelle Hughes. I want to mention that Reverend Hughes is resigning effective the end of the year. And I appreciate Michelle, everything she's done. I've worked with her in various capacities. I'm a coach with the TPERC program as well. And she does a fantastic job. We're very appreciative of the things she does, and we're going to miss her. A search is underway for her replacement. That's been, Molly may talk about that later. But right now, what I'd like to do is hear her report from TPERC. And if you would go ahead, Jana, and run that, I would appreciate it.
Greetings. I'm Reverend Michelle Hughes, Program Director for the TPERC program, Thriving Pastors in Revitalizing Congregations. This has been an important program of the Illinois Conference. I want to give a sincere thanks to the 37 churches that have been in this program for the past 2 years. As we are entering our last couple of years, that we're going to make some changes. One of the changes that I would like to propose is that we rebrand or rename what we're doing. I believe that how this program has been articulated has led to some confusion, and I think a rebranding will help manage those expectations. While this program is called the Thriving Pastors in Revitalizing Congregations, the idea behind this grant, as articulated and set forth by the Lilly Foundation, who is our founder, is that the more pastors are supported, that congregational thriving or revitalization will be a byproduct. So being in this program was never to be a blueprint or a guarantee you get in this program and you will be revitalized, but rather with the idea that the more pastors are supported with coaching, with peer engagement, with an internal group, their TPERC team, to help them vision and move the church forward. That the more pastors are engaged and supported, that revitalization would not be a guarantee, but a byproduct. This is not my idea. This is the philosophy of the Lilly Foundation, which is why our program has the components that it does. Every pastor in the program gets a coach. Every pastor in the program is asked to identify a TPERC team to work with them on revitalization. Why is this important? So that the pastor isn't the only person holding the vision of what the church could be. And then pastors have a peer group, clergy communities of practice. Again, another way to have community and a sharing of ideas and resources. The cohorts meet quarterly so that all the churches can meet together, as they are grouped in 6 regional cohorts. So each cohort has 4 to 6 churches, so that the churches could share and do some wisdom sharing and learn from each other. And then finally, every September, we have an annual learning event, our Education Summit. So those are the components of the TPERC program. But thinking about some of the expectations people have, I have been going around as I'm meeting with cohorts this last quarter to discuss a rebranding, to focus on the pastoral thriving that is really the key component to this program. So we are discussing it. It's been a lively discussion. We will continue these discussions into early December, and then we will announce our branding and our new logo. So stay tuned. We have a lot of exciting things coming up, and God bless. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Reverend Hughes. We're glad for the work you're doing. And for those of you that don't know, I think most of you do, but for those of you that don't know, we received a $1,500,000 $1 million 5-year grant 3 years ago from the Lilly Foundation in Indianapolis, Indiana, for this TPERC program that we're operating under. We will be entering year 4 starting in January. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but it seems to me there's around 35, 36 churches involved in the program right now. And I know I am working with 2 churches myself, and we've done some, besides meeting, we have a fall retreat every year that we participate in, and we've had some excellent speakers for that. It's just been a very, very good program. We're appreciative of the program. I can't see whether Michelle is on the call or not. Are there any questions of Michelle of the program? If not, the next item on the agenda is one that I'm happy to talk about as well. And that is that the Personnel Committee has sent to the Conference Council and been approved by Conference Council the recommendation motion for.
You just smell them, right?
I'm sorry? Oh, somebody said something, I thought. We have a motion from the Personnel Committee to the Conference Council that Reverend Terrell Murph has become a settled association conference minister of the Illinois Conference. No matter what the structure plan the conference will follow, and that the word acting be removed from his job title and job description. When we vote on this, which is scheduled for tomorrow, actually, the motion will be a lot less words to make it easier, but that is the motion that came out of the Personnel Committee to the Conference Council and was approved by Conference Council. Terrell has been acting Associate Conference Minister for a little over 2 years, right, Terrell? Again, I can't see you, but I know you're there somewhere. And so we're grateful that we have that opportunity. Molly, I'll let you have the floor if you want to add anything to this in terms of discussion. We're going to spend a couple minutes just talking about this to make sure there's no questions before we vote on it tomorrow.
Yeah, we're excited to suggest that Terrell move forward and become a settled associate conference minister. This came up in conversation the end of last year. And because we were in the process of restructuring the ACM jobs, we decided to hold off on that. The personnel has approved to move forward with the new job descriptions. And so Terrell's position will be working with focused on program innovation and events, as well as supporting the pastors and the churches of the CMA.
Great, thank you, Molly. Are there any questions regarding this from the floor? Again, we're not going to vote on this today. It's scheduled to vote on tomorrow. I put it on there today so that if we have questions, we can respond to the questions and have our discussion today. Not rushing, want to make sure I've answered. All right. The next item on the agenda is a General Synod report. And we at the last minute put Reverend Dr. Stephanie Perdue on the spot here by asking her, she was a delegate to the Synod along with myself, if she would give us a verbal report. I want to point out that she is our new transitional associate conference minister as well, and will be taking over the role sometime, I believe, in January. So Stephanie, thank you for being here today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, David. And I did type this up, so if it's needed as a written report, I'm glad to submit it. As David said, I was one of the several delegates from the Illinois Conference to our 33rd General Synod, and ours was a virtual synod and a virtual delegation. And we were well prepped for that virtual work by representatives of the Presbyterian Church USA, who essentially shared with us in the UCC their virtual platform for meeting and voting, which they had to use at their own biennial in the summer of 2020. And as we know, it's not just delegates who attend Synod, it's a church-wide celebration, and our worship and our keynote speakers enriched us and educated us in that regard. The workshops were fabulous. The exhibition hall was fabulous. But our Illinois conference delegation met each morning, and Reverend Molly Carlson organized some excellent briefings for us from Reverend Tracy Blackman regarding the medical debt relief campaign in the UCC, which is also a campaign underway here in the Illinois Conference. We had briefings from Mesa on the new church profile or pastoral profile platform and the upcoming manual on church. Briefings from our United Church Funds, United Church of Christ General Council, and then on the resolutions before the Synod. Many of us were assigned to committee work on the resolutions. Not all of us had committee assignments just by virtue of the way things shook out. There was some bylaw business before the Synod, which was updating of our language, particularly to move away from non-binary language and thinking about demographic representation on various committees of the United Church of Christ, which approved wholeheartedly. And there were several resolutions. 3 resolutions went to plenary and passed at the plenary level, didn't have to go to committee. Those were the resolution to recognize the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent, the resolution to declare and respond to racism as a public health crisis, and the resolution to call on the UCC to be a church of contemplatives in action. One resolution which went to committee was what was called prudential, and that was the Alliance of Associate Conference Ministers asking for formal recognition, which did pass at the plenary level. 6 resolutions were of the witness nature. These are usually statements on theological belief or statements that impact the church's wider engagement with public policy. And those were the affirming the needed reform of the cash bail system, the encouragement of a ban on conversion therapy, a resolution honoring the rights of nature, a resolution on the declaration regarding a just peace between Israel and Palestine, and the resolution on the call for Hawaiian self-governance. And all of those also passed, some as stated and some as amended. And we're thankful for all of our delegates who worked at the committee level. I think probably most interesting to me as a tribal citizen of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma was the resolution calling for recognition of Hawaiian self-governance. And the way it played out, if you were at Synod, in that it was declined or didn't pass one day and then it was brought back to the floor the next day and passed, was fascinating from a UCC polity perspective. And Reverend Wood and Reverend Laws and Reverend Murph really helped the rest of us delegates at some point through a group chat really even understand what was going on procedurally. And so, usually after a general synod, we're all kind of left with the question of what do these resolutions do and why do they matter? And they matter in the church, I believe, because once we're educated, we have responsibility to act. And I think that they matter beyond the church. Certainly the resolution on Israel-Palestine matters. It may not matter to the government of the state of Israel presently, but it certainly matters to the Biden administration, and it matters to our partners in Palestine. And from a tribal perspective, the case for the call for Hawaiian self-governance has been noticed, and not even maybe primarily within the UCC, but it has been noticed among tribal nations in the United States. There are 574 tribal nations with sovereignty in the United States. It has been noticed by the Biden administration, which is holding a tribal nations summit this week. So these types of resolutions and our continued education and responsibility to advocate for them and really embody them is important to the communities which they are intended to affect. So that is my report. I'm happy to submit it in written form for the record if needed, and I'm happy to entertain any questions. And thank you everyone who was in our delegation.
Thank you, Stephanie. Are there any questions of Stephanie or of the delegation that might be on the call? I will say just a little quick addition. We met every morning, as Stephanie said, and had good sessions. And Molly had excellent visitors and speakers for us, and we learned a lot in that alone. And then every night we had a fireside chat or a port session with me, and a lot accomplished during that time as well, but we can't repeat most of that. But it was a good time. So thank you again, Stephanie. We appreciate that.
Thank you. And I just encourage everyone, if you're asked or nominated, to seriously think about saying yes to being a Synod delegate.
Yeah, it was a good experience. I would have been more fun if we'd been in Kansas City, which is Kansas is my home state. So I was looking forward to that. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it. The next item on the agenda is one that we've inserted. I received a video today. I know about what's going on. I just had not seen the video from Marva Pruitt over at Sauk Village Grace Church. And they have a great program, farm program going on now that they're actually working on now, that they'll be starting the actual farm next spring. They've been working on the farm, but they'll actually be planting next spring. And I want to share that with you as we approach the discussion on budget, because there's a number of ways we do stewardship in the United Church of Christ and in all churches. And this is one of the ways. So if you have that, let's see, my parliamentarian has raised your hand. Marva?
Just a matter of correction, sir. That video had to have been sent by Reverend Melanie Seaton of Grace United Church.
I always mess that up. I'm known for my metaphors of not working very well. Actually, Jim Reed sent it to me, to be more specific. But okay, have we got it, Jana?
Sarah has it.
I had a question of Stephanie about the resolution on racism as a public health crisis.
Go ahead.
The question was I would just like her to say more about it, because that was passed at the General Synod and very quickly, but I don't know if you had a chance to read that to see some of the particularities of that resolution.
Yeah, the resolutions are still, the website is still live, so anyone can go back and read all of the resolutions that came before the Synod, and certainly those of us in the delegation, had the assignment of reading all of those resolutions. We were also briefed on that resolution. And I think somewhere on the Synod website as well is an informational video about the very detailed content of that resolution and the research behind it that, absolutely documents what I think we know intuitively, which is the disproportionate mental and physical health impact of racism for people of color, of all ages throughout the nation. So I commend all that to you. It can be found if you just Google UCC General Synod 2021. You will maybe have to do a little digging, but you will find your way to those materials.
Thank you. Any other questions? And I'm going to do the share of the screen on the farm video. I apologize. I am the one doing that. Any other questions? Good. All right. So let's see if I can do this right and not here.
I think food just really brings people together. And when you break bread with people, it just softens your heart. It softens your heart.
There's something about having your hands in the dirt together with other people that breaks down walls.
It feels really good to be able to help improve food access in the areas where we farm.
Yes, we're producing food, we're growing food, but it is truly the interaction of all of the people who didn't know each other before, and they do now.
So we are standing in the St. James Community Farm. We entered a partnership with the St. James Church last year.
We need something that can help produce food for the people, and this is a great project for that.
We had actually put it on hold for a little while with the idea that we couldn't do it. And then we realized that the need was great at the food pantry, and so we forged ahead.
And as you can see, there's so many things growing, and all this produce ends up in people's hands by the end of the day.
Those are fields and fields and fields of beans. Those are beans that you guys planted. Remember you stuck them in the dirt?
All three of those are just regular, like, snap beans.
Snap beans, okay, snap.
How many colors?
How many colors do you see?
I see three. I don't know.
But how many? Let's count.
One, two,
Three. See, three in my hand.
Just Roots was very generous to us, donating food to our food pantry, and that's how the relationship began. And then eventually we were able to work together to establish the farm, and now they have actually increased the amount of donations they give to the pantry. So the food pantry began in 1972. Today, I think at that time, maybe they were serving about 300 families or less. Right now, we serve about 1,500 families a month. But in terms of communities, we do serve Chinatown, we serve Brownsville, we serve South Loop, and Bridgeport. I think having a place like this where they can come and get fresh produce, I think it's a great opportunity for them.
And yeah, it's like an incredible feeling to be able to bring produce over to the pantry that's been harvested like 10 minutes before.
And we appreciate the fact that our clients are enjoying it too.
What led me to want to start volunteering is being able to provide healthy, local, sustainable food in communities that are underserved, helping communities that don't have access to these types of programs and really this type of food.
So food insecurity, I actually like to use the term, instead of food deserts, food apartheid.
The phrase food apartheid as opposed to food deserts is because apartheid is very obviously human constructed.
It's structural reasons.
It's not just like there's a scarcity of resources. There's a scarcity of resources because of segregation. And you just see that in terms of the number of grocery stores here on the south side. You see that in terms of the quality of produce and the amount of produce available in those grocery stores.
And that disinvestment is kind of intrinsic to certain systems, and so we're trying to disrupt it and create our own food systems and make it so that access is kind of in the hands of those in the community.
What is it? Is it cucumbers? You guys just ate cucumbers yesterday.
So that's what you're eating.
Our next farm is going to be in Sauk Village, and we are so excited about the collaboration with Grace United Church of Christ. Reverend Mel and her parishioners and her team are amazing.
I had never heard of Just Roots. They came out and they fell in love with the land, and then I fell in love with the idea of a farm.
My hopes for the farm is that it will turn this community into a real community, a bringing together of hearts and minds.
There's a lot of tension in this community.
There's a lot of division, a lot of racial division.
The racial tensions, the health issues, economic issues. We have a percentage of working poor people in this community, and they come to our pantry, so being able to fulfill that need.
There are no grocery stores. People would have to travel pretty far for fresh vegetables, fruits and vegetables, and to be able to provide it here, locally grown, I think is very important.
I see it as an opportunity, people coming together, not concerned about political affiliations, not concerned about who I am, what my background is, or how much I make and how much I don't make, because we're all doing this together.
It's important to have the farm in Sauk Village because it helps the community. It helps the community be self-sustaining. It helps people to learn a trade. They're going to teach you how to farm, teach you how to grow, and this is what this gardening will do. It will actually teach you how to put food on your table, and that's a great thing for the community.
The farm is going to take up the area beyond here. On about 2 acres of land, we're going to have some hoop houses, so we'll be able to grow year round. Well, we have a food pantry, but to be able to have a supply of fresh vegetables every week, it would just be great.
And it's going to be a great addition to the community. To bring a farm that size to the south suburbs will provide much more produce and much more community action in the area. I would like community members to know that they're welcomed and that the farm is for them. They can come and they can learn and they can be provided with whatever we do have and whatever we can offer.
We are building a community. We want your involvement. We seek the involvement of the community.
So when someone comes by this farm and it's their first time seeing it, what we want them to know is that this space is theirs. It's as much theirs as it is ours.
I want them to feel welcome, and I want them to know how delicious turnips can be.
Whatever their needs may be, whether it just be to satisfy their curiosity or if they're hungry, they're welcome.
There's a scripture that says that God will take your little and make it much. And so we're giving our little, knowing that God will make much out of it. This village will come together to make this farm flourish for the village.
If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what else will. And I want to point out that, whoops, hold on. I apologize. I forgot I got to close this, don't I? There we go. That doesn't get me excited. Okay, so it's another way of stewardship, and I want to point out that for a number of years, Grace was supported also by the LEAP program and received LEAP grants, and they have done very well with what help they have received. Mostly what they have received is from other churches as well, and as a part of the Eastern Association, they've been involved with our governance and our programs, and they have really and are doing a really fantastic job. And we appreciate all the things that Melody's doing. Melody, are you on the call? Again, I can't see everybody. Anybody have any questions about what you just saw on this video? If not, the next order of business is to not vote on the budget, but to discuss the budget. Over the last month, we've had every Wednesday 3 o'clock session of our conference get together devoted toward talking about our budget for 2022, both the general budget and the budget for the 2 camps. Last night, we had a special panel discussion on budget as well. We've done everything we can to make sure that we've given opportunity to people to talk with us ahead of time about what we're doing and what the budget is. It is a balanced budget. And again, a reminder, there's a link in the chat. If you weren't able to find it on the email that was sent out, you can click on that link and you can pull the budget out of the drive. Excuse me. If you have questions, I'll be happy to listen to a few right now and discuss that. But again, we're going to do the actual voting tomorrow. Questions and or comments? Hearing or seeing none.
David, there's a raised hand. Jan Peters has her hand raised.
Thank you. I can't see the hand. Thank you. Dan, go ahead.
At the discussion last night, at the panel discussion, there was a mention of properties that the conference owns. Is that several parts to that question? Is that standard procedure that if a church is to be sold, then it's owned by the conference or the UCC, or is that unique to each individual church is part of the question? And then the other question, or the other statement that was made, was that any profit from those that the Illinois Conference owns would be a one-time addition to the revenue. But I'm assuming that that could be changed as far as when those funds were available, so that maybe it would be money that could be spread out over a number of years. So 2 parts to my question.
Thank you. Very good question. And I'll respond to part of it, and Molly can jump in on this as well. Thank you, Jan. The properties, first of all, we're congregationalists, right? And so each church decides what happens to their property, but we are in covenant with each other. And as we are in covenant with each other, the majority of our churches have covenants, whereas when the church decides that their ministry is over, that they would contact their associate conference minister, and we would work with them on how they would like to close their church and or utilize the assets that are left over, because it's not always a building. Sometimes it's cash, sometimes it's other things. And we've had a number of situations where that has occurred. Some churches, and this year that's happened, decide that they want to donate their church to the local community civic groups that they can be used for a civic building. Other churches decide they want to donate it back to the conference, and there are other options. Some churches sell the building and then use the proceeds for a number of different purposes. It really is up to the church, but we'd like to assist you in that. And again, the best way to start that process is to contact your associate conference minister and let them help you with that process. Secondly, in terms of what happens with the revenue, that is normally council directed once the building has been sold or other things are brought in. We have a property committee that assists with that. And as the property committee works to help sell that property, we accrue costs quite often, because maybe we keep that building. We have buildings that have been open for several years. And those buildings, we have utilities, we have maintenance, we have other costs that have gone into those costs. So we're always talking about that as net revenue and not revenue. And there are costs that are accrued, and I always forget the exact term that we use to tally those costs. Molly, help me out.
We track them as reverted assets.
Thank you. Reverted assets. They're tracked as reverted assets. And the first thing that happens when a building has been sold is we pay back the money that was paid ahead. And typically that has come out of the general fund, so that money goes back into the general fund. Then after that, the money that is left, in the past, it's been the council's decision as to how that money is used. It is what we call council driven. And the council at this point has not made a decision on how we're going to use money from properties that might be resold. We will leave it to the new council at the first of the year to have that discussion. We want to see what happens with our OCWM, quite frankly, at the end of the year. We would prefer not to have to use that as a general rule for the general fund. We prefer to be able to use that for LEAP projects and other projects, but that will be determined based upon what happens, quite frankly, with OCWM. Now, that's my answer, and there's a better, another way to put that. I'm going to let Molly respond to that as well.
David, I think you had a pretty clear description. When a property is sold, when a church closes, the properties are sometimes revert to the, passed on to the conference. It is not an automatic sort of thing. It's a process. But when we are able, our goal is always to leverage the asset for ministry. And so this last year, we were able to gift, sell for $1 2 of these properties to a couple of local churches, including Grace at Sauk Village. They now fully own their building, and that was a building that had reverted to the conference, and we were able to gift it to them at the point when they were established enough to be able to take over all of the bills, the utilities and the other expenses. And All of those expenses that we've covered over the years have now been written off. Other buildings, the best and highest use of those buildings is determined to sell them. And the conference then, our goal is to leverage those resources to best support mission and ministry within the conference. And each sale comes at a different time with different needs. Over the last many years, those dollars have been designated by council to automatically go to fund LEAP. We are not in a position where we can automatically do that anymore or at this time. And depending on what the proceeds of these sales are, will depend on what we're able to do. And the council will be considering various different options.
Thank you, Molly. There's a couple of things I'll add to that. One is that we don't necessarily accept all properties. It doesn't make sense. Jan, I'll get to you in just a second too, by the way. I do see your hand. There's a couple of times when the property, for example, might have so much of asbestos that it would be cost prohibitive for us to accept that property and pay more than what the property's worth to keep that property up. So we have that option as well. And that's why we have a property committee. The property committee, we're striving to make sure they're made up of people who have a background in property management, either through real estate, banking, or other areas. And we have a number of people that are already on the property committee that have that background. We're adding some more people the first of the year that will help us with that as well. Yes, Jan, I see your hand. Go ahead.
I don't remember, and I know I should know it, but what is LEAP? I don't have that in front of me and I can't remember.
Stands for Local Evangelism, something, something, something. In summary, it's about supporting new church starts, new church development, and revitalization projects that help existing churches really be able to take that step forward. And so it has been several years that we have a team that reviews grant proposals and funds grants that are specifically designed to support either new church development or revitalization projects specifically.
Thank you.
I'm sure John Prain's looking that up right now. He's going to put it in the chat for us. I know John.
It's on the website.
It is on the website.
It's one of the tabs on the website.
It is, and when you're hosting a meeting and you've used it numerous, I was on the LEAP committee. It's a great committee. Typically, their grants can be up to 3 years in a row, by the way, and I've seen a lot of good things come out of LEAP grants. And there is some accountability. There are specific rules, and it's just not given away. But it's a good program for new starts and for new projects. It's not made to buy a new refrigerator for a church. It's there to help things that are related to evangelism. And we're very happy with the program. Good question. Thank you, Jan. Anybody else have questions on this? So again, you have, I do want to say that all three budgets, Pilgrim Park, Tower Hill, and the conference general budget are balanced budgets. When I say balanced, they're balanced, so by the end of the year, they should be break even. That's accomplished several ways. In the case of the camps, they're aware that in order for us to have a balanced budget, if they don't balance their costs, we may have to take some money out of their funds that they have. That in the past was not done as efficiently as possible, which created some issues. There's LEAP, local evangelism, envisioning and planting. Thank you, Sarah. That's what LEAP stands for. But they've done a good job. This year, we anticipate Tower Hill will end the year actually in the black, making a small amount of profit. And Pilgrim Park will be struggling, but Pilgrim Park struggles because of the COVID virus this year. They weren't able to have as many of the camp programs in the summer that they usually have, where they actually have kids coming out. But they've actually done a very good job of managing, and they're in their peak period right now. They have a lot of things to come in the fall. November, December are going to be very periods. So we're comfortable that they're going to do the best they can. And again, their budget for next year is to be balanced. In the case of the conference, the budget is balanced by virtue of initially the plan. And remember, a budget is a plan. is budgeted by the property revenue, saying that net revenues will be somewhere off the top of my head around $101,000 to balance the budget next year. And that's assuming a OCWM, which is our church's wider mission, of 1.1 million. And if you'll remember, our church's wider mission is what you send in to the conference. 80% of that is kept in Illinois by the conference to cover the expenses that we have. 20% goes to the national office. The other points of revenue besides property sales that we have right now are Mission Friends, which is a program by which you can send money directly to the conference under Mission Friends, and 100% of that money stays with the conference. We are not suggesting nor asking that you not send OCWN in. We'd like to continue that program. But for those that want to send a little extra in, Mission Friends is a great way to do it. That being said, the temptation this year for the offerings for our 2 worship services was not to have it for OCWM or not for Mission Friends, but to use it for a mission project, which is the medical relief program that we've introduced several times. Other questions and comments? We, again, will vote on this tomorrow, but we wanted to introduce it today and answer any initial questions that you might have. Seeing none, the next item on the agenda was the celebration video, which we've already seen, but we want to go back to the video from Elmhurst College. Janet, do you have that queued up?
Sarah has that one.
Sarah, okay.
Welcome to Elmhurst University. As an institution of learning that is strongly connected to our United Church of Christ, we are proud to lift up Higher Education Sunday. As president of one of this nation's newest universities, but one with a history reaching back nearly 150 years, I'm very thankful for the foundation our university rests on as part of the UCC. Our beginnings as an institution are based in faith, rooted in the Evangelical Reformed Church that now is the United Church of Christ. As we fast approach our sesquicentennial year, we continue to celebrate our roots and mission, educating for the greater society and knowing that our work is vital and much needed in today's world. We believe our community represents the best of the UCC, and we view our ties with the church as a living, vibrant relationship. This video is another way that we nurture that relationship. I'm so thankful for your support and look forward to your visit to campus. It's now my great pleasure to introduce one of our trustees and the proud mother of one of our alums, the Reverend Dr. Mary Schaller-Blaufuss of Eden Theological Seminary.
Greetings from the campus of Eden Theological Seminary in St. Louis, Missouri, another of the institutions of higher education of the United Church of Christ. I am Mary Schaller-Blaufuss, serving as Vice President for Advancement here at Eden. I've served in a lot of parts of the United Church of Christ and love that this is a denomination that values intellectual rigor, inclusivity, interfaith collegiality. As the mother of a recent alum at Elmhurst University, I am so proud that she received opportunities for leadership development and grounding in social justice that allows her to embark on her career that will change the world. And now throwing this to Reverend Bob Ullman, long-term trustee and United Church of Christ pastor.
Thank you, Mary. As we live into what it means to be Elmhurst University in the 21st century, we see more of the ever-widening circle that our sixth president, H. Richard Niebuhr, envisioned for Elmhurst College in the 1920s, serving a growing diverse student body, committed to intellectual curiosity and excellence combined with professional preparation. Elmhurst University remains committed to raising up new generations of students who embrace the values we share with the United Church of Christ. Commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion, advocating for a just world for all, and being responsible stewards of all the resources entrusted to our care. I'd like you to meet fellow Board of Trustees member and alum, Reverend Bernard Jakes, pastor of the Faith Family of West Point Baptist Church in Chicago.
God bless you, beloved. I am the Reverend Dr. L. Bernard Jakes, an alumnus of Elmhurst University. I'm the father of a recent graduate of Elmhurst University, and so we contribute to the ever-widening circle of that great institution. I was thinking about a quote of Dr. King that said, "Lightning doesn't make a sound until it strikes." Well, justice is the same way. Justice doesn't make a sound until it strikes. Let us use our voices to make a sound for justice. And now let us hear from our chaplain, Reverend H. Scott Matheny.
In this chapel, Elmhurst welcomes men and women from all around the world, and in that we gather them here and then send them into the rigors of intellectual life, the joys of learning. And then we gather them again and bless them and send them forth as alums with proud degrees, with hearts, minds, souls, and bodies changed. One of our alum, Reinhold Niebuhr, talks it like this: love is the motive, and justice is the instrument. We hold those two together here, love and justice. And then we invite you to join us in that process. And so may you be filled and find love. May you be filled and find justice. May you be filled and be thankful. Let us pray. Almighty and gracious God, in this season of learning and time of hope, we ask your blessings and prayers upon our beloved denomination, the United Church of Christ, and all in higher education, for Elmhurst University and all the colleges, universities, and seminaries of graduate study that ring and support and are known through the United Church of Christ. Be with each of those who teach, study, fund, administrate, and organize, that we might be empowered to live into the mission and vision that you have given us. And so, gracious one, bless all who hear these words, that we might grow together and learn to love and be about the work of justice. All of this we give thanks and pray in your holy and eternal name. Amen. Go in peace to love and serve. Amen.
Thank you for that. I'm constantly aware of my shortcomings, and one of my shortcomings is getting things like this wrong. This is Elmhurst University, not Elmhurst College.
I do it too, David. I had to say it. Sorry.
I apologize to those of you in particular that might be alums of, and I didn't say alums, I said alums, so that's a good start.
And it's my beloved college, and now it's university. It's the hardest thing in the world for me to change, but it has to be done.
Well, actually, my college in Kansas, Wesleyan College in Salina, Kansas, is also Kansas Wesleyan University. So I got you. So thank you for that, Kim. I appreciate that. So now we're going to get into some tricky discussions here. So I'd ask you to put your thinking caps on as we have these discussions. We've got several motions to go through in the next few minutes, but we're on the downside here. So thank you for staying with us. The nominating committee has submitted to us their slate for the election for officers for this next year. And by now you should have seen that. We had a little hiccup though last week. And that hiccup was that one of the people, Ernie Potter, decided that he did not want to serve another 2-year term. Ernie has finished his 2-year term. And those of us in the know, those of us who work on particularly conference council and on the FAB committee, finance committee, will tell you that Ernie has been a huge, huge help for us the last 2 years. He's done a lot of things for us that have just really helped us to get our finances in much better shape and much better condition and headed in the right direction. And we are extremely grateful for those things. But by deciding last Friday that he wasn't going to serve another term, he kind of put us in a lurch because we had already approved at council, him as part of the slate. And in reading the Constitution, and we don't have another person yet, but I'm not going to get to that yet. We're not putting anything on the floor for that discussion today. But in reading the Constitution, we realized several things, and one of which was that we don't have a plan for when somebody, when we have a person missing from the slate, or when we don't, or we have somebody resign after the slate's been approved during the middle of the year. The Constitution is not clear on what we should be doing. And we realize that that could be problematic down the road because people change, people decide they don't want to serve the office, or their health reasons aren't able to serve the office. And when that happens, we need to have an avenue to be able to replace those people. And so that's the purpose for the discussion in the next few minutes. We do expect to be able to replace Ernie. We're looking for somebody with some accounting experience, preferably a CPA. We have talked to several people and invited them to consider, and they graciously came back and said, that's not what I want to do, or I don't feel like I'm qualified for that. And we're going to continue that process. And we expect to be able to find somebody within the next 30 days, but certainly within the next 90 days. Based upon that, I have talked with Ernie, and he has agreed to continue to serve up to 90 days, but he would like to be able to get out as soon as we find somebody. The problem is I don't feel like I want to call an entire conference meeting to elect somebody at that point, because we have enough trouble getting 99 people or 100 people right now today, didn't we? So we're trying to come up with a different way to do this. And we've come up with some motions that we'd like for you to consider. And if you do, I would entertain today those motions being put on the floor for discussion and possible vote. The first motion I'll read before we do any further, and I'll read the discussion on it. If any elected office or elected position that is normally elected by the Illinois Conference is not filled by election at this annual meeting, or if any vacancies in such elected offices or elected positions shall occur between the annual meeting of the Illinois Conference and the next annual meeting of the Illinois Conference, the Conference Council of the Illinois Conference of the United States Church of Christ, is authorized and empowered to fill any such vacancies. So the point of that motion would be that if we have an opening, and by the way, we have more than one opening. The treasurer is the one opening. The ODM at large positions are also positions that are appointed at the annual meeting according to the Constitution, and there's a couple others. Eric, you're on the call as well, so jump in on this if you need to. But we feel like it would be better served when we don't have that position filled, or if that position opens up during the year, for the nominating committee, as they normally would do, to go out and find the person. And then once that person has been located and accepted, then bring that to the conference council that normally meets every month, rather than have to call a special meeting of the entire conference because of the time and expense involved. So before I ask for a motion, I'll entertain questions and comments. Jan Peters.
One comment on that. In groups where that kind of thing has been put into the procedure, part of that also included that if that person is appointed to fill a position that suddenly came up, then that they would have to run on their own at the next official meeting. So in other words, instead of fulfilling a possible multi-year position, they would fill it until the next election for that organization.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I understand that. Thank you. I think from a parliamentarian point of view, before I entertain any other questions, we need to have this put in the form of a motion so that we can get a second and then have discussion. So based upon, who said that, please? Give your name when you. Thank you, Roger. And who seconded?
I'll second it then. Bob Tolich.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Do we have a further discussion?
I have a question. Is the motion as you originally read it, or is it with the addenda that was just mentioned in the earlier discussion?
Agree.
Good point. Sarah, are you able to put the motion that we're going to vote on the poll? We're not going to vote yet. Please do not vote, but I want to show it to you.
I can if you give me one moment.
Okay, thank you. We kind of cut it down a little bit, but the intent of the motion would be that if a position comes open that's normally elected at the annual meeting, that it would be up to the conference council to approve whatever the nominating committee did on that. Jan, I'm not discounting your thought, by the way, but that might need to be a separate discussion after this motion has passed, if it passes. Kimberly Vasco, I see your hand. I see two hands, so let's go with Kimberly first.
Yeah, this may be a later conversation, but because I don't want to go off on a tangent, but there are a number of things that Rudra is and the committee really need to address that we have had some conversations about with regard to the slate on ODM, because there are too many individuals that are on the list for the roster that create a necessity for quorum. And it's almost next to impossible to get quorum at any individual meeting because of the amount of people on the committee. So that is something on a broader level that needs to be addressed. And I believe it has to be done through the Constitution. So that's part of a bigger conversation. And it's not even something we've been able to do within our committee. So the conference needs to be aware of that.
Thank you. I'll respond just a second, and Jan, give me just a second. But the answer to your question, Sarah, I want just the one for the vacancy first. But Kim, that's a good point, and Molly would be the first to tell you, and John and myself, we've had discussions about this. We recognize some major changes are needed in governance because this is a problem not just the ODM committee has, but other committees have this problem as well. And over the next year, of course, I have one more year left on my term, and after that, John Crane, as vice president, would normally be coming on as president, and that'll be something that during his tenure probably we will spend a lot of time working on, because we really do need to make some changes in that. It's very difficult, and associations, by the way, are having the same meeting. There's associations that have not been able to conduct business because they didn't have enough of a quorum for their meeting. So right. we're all working toward some resolution on that. We don't have anything prepared for this meeting to talk about, but we do recognize it does need to be discussed and action needs to be taken. So yeah, the Constitution is going to get a good look at it in the next year. Molly, do you want to add anything onto that at all?
I've talked about that a fair bit in other settings, and so no, I don't feel I need to add to anything. It is high on the agenda for what's next. We've had financial and staff restructure as priorities. Looking at governance issues is next.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kim.
I hope that there will be some effort and inclusion in providing appropriate and helpful procedures for the nominating committee and, you know, the chain of command, if you will, or proper protocol and how to handle transitions.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Jan, I'll recognize you.
Wait a minute. If people want my idea to be included, does that mean then that they would have to vote no for the original motion, and then a new one including my ideas to be put in, then to be voted on if the first one fails? That's part one of my question. The second one is, again, I know somewhere I have written down what ODM means and I don't have it in front of me, so please remind me what it means.
Outdoor ministries.
You'll note that I did not respond because I knew I'd say the wrong thing. No, it is outdoor ministry.
I have a question.
Hold on. I need to respond to this question first, please. The way I believe my parliamentarian would direct this, and John would direct the same way, I suspect, is that if you'd like to make a addendum to this motion, you can. You'd do that by making your motion that this be added to the motion, and then we would have a second for that would be the process, and then we would have a debate on that alone. And if that passed, then that would be added to the motion that we're currently discussing. Does that make sense? Did I get that right?
Does that mean then that any discussion would have to be after that suggestion to modify the motion is made and not beforehand to decide whether or not that's really a good idea under the current way that things are run?
If the motion,
Would my
if there-
idea be helpful or not helpful?
if there's a motion to amend, we will discuss that first before, if it's seconded, before we will, and then vote on it before we would have the other discussion. It takes precedent. Or you, again, you can wait till the motion passes or not passes and add, put your own motion. We can take motions from the floor. Hank Fairman, I see your hand.
I would move to amend based on Jan Peters' wording, and I would give the floor to her to make the wording for that amendment.
Second the motion.
Okay, so you'll need to give me some wording for that.
If I might, this is John Prain. It'd be good if they would put the amendment into the chat. We've done that in some other settings and that has been helpful. I'm recommending that to you, David.
Thank you. That would be a good idea. Either Jan
Please send it to me via the chat, Sarah, to the Illinois conference.
Can I just stick my nose in and say, when the amendment is being made, clarity, if that election at the next meeting would be to fill that term or to start a new term from day one?
As the maker of the motion, I would say that it would be to be ratified to fill the term into which they were appointed.
I just want clarity on that. That's all I was saying.
And let me point out for the treasurer is elected opposite of the secretary. They're elected on different years so that we never have a new secretary and treasurer at the same time. That is in the Constitution, by the way. So that's the reason this motion was written that way. That's just for clarification. I'm not making an adjustment, but we'll need someone to write into the chat what their motion is before I can recognize it.
Working on it. Who do I send it to?
Put it in the chat under everyone, please. Whoops, I got to send it to me from Sarah. So send it to Illinois Conference.
I can't do that. I can only send it to one person. I'll get it there in a second.
Are you sending it on your phone or are you using the chat function, Hank?
I'm using regular old Zoom. I can only send
Okay.
to one person. I don't have permission to get beyond that.
Right, okay.
Illinois conference is Sarah.
And as was just put into the chat, if you do speak, it would be helpful to give your name first, because even though you know who you are, we can't see everybody. And most of the time I recognize who it is, but not all of the time.
Grant Speece, I was the second, by the way.
Yeah, Grant Speece was the second, Hank was the first. While Hank is typing that, we can have discussion on that. Is there any discussion on that motion to amend?
I would like to speak against it, and this is Bob Tolich. And the reason for that is simply, well, it's twofold. One, faith in the conference council to do a good job. And second, always the problem of obtaining a quorum for meetings like this. And so if the nominating committee nominates somebody, sends it to the association, the conference council, we should have faith in them to be able to make a good judgment.
Thank you, Bob. Other discussion?
Ms. Mark Binder, my understanding of the motion being made is the decision would still go to conference council to fill it in the short term. It just means that at the next election cycle, that has to be on the person has to be on the slate.
Tolich again.
We don't have to call a separate meeting to do the action.
Understood, but at the next annual meeting, we always have problems with, until we get it resolved, we always have problems with a quorum. And if we did not have a quorum, then that position would go unfilled.
Okay, the chair recognizes Kimberly Vasco.
Yeah, I hear that, but I would also note that if you have someone who is on your committee that has repeatedly not attended meetings and not responded to multiple individuals reaching out to them, that there has to be a position that the committee can respond and hold that individual accountable in order to function. If we can't have a quorum and we have multiple individuals that are not participating in meetings and they don't respond to inquiries, we can't be forced to maintain a quorum and not be able to do business.
Okay, I'll jump in on that for just a second. And when it comes to the conference, the rules have nothing to do with anything other than the number of 100 according to the current constitution. So that will have to be changed. But as it is right now, it must be 100 people and must be representative of all 5 associations. The motion to amend reads that to add that the person appointed to the position be subject to election by the conference at the first available meeting and fills the term to the position to which they were appointed. Any other discussion on that motion before we take a vote? I'm going to let Sarah type that together first. Sarah, let me know when you have it ready to put on. This is the motion to amend only. This is not the motion for what we were talking about earlier.
David, you have 3 hands raised. You have 3 hands raised, David.
Okay, I can't see him, so help me out. Who is it?
Jan Peters.
All right, let's go with Jan Peters first.
That was not my intention with my suggestion. I quibble with the at the first available meeting. What I meant was at the next full association meeting.
You mean conference?
Conference meeting, I mean. So that it would go to one where you were already going to be needing a quorum, where it's the big meeting that lots of people come to. I did not mean at the very next whatever meeting would qualify, because I can see where that could be a big problem. But I also see a potential problem for my idea with the alternating expiration of people's terms. So if my idea would mess that up, then I would withdraw my idea.
Okay, you did not make the motion though, so that's going to be up to Hank, who did make the motion. If he wants to change the language, whether or not it was your intention or not, right now it would be Hank's call.
Sue Harvey.
Hi, Sue Harvey from Faith United Protestant Church. Just to clarify, in the motion, it's talking about this meeting and then the next annual meeting. My understanding, we were talking about annual meetings going forward beyond those 2 meetings. Is the language correct?
Yes, it would be the next annual meeting, which currently would be scheduled for October next year.
Okay, so if something happens at that meeting, would have to have another vote for 2023? Are we talking about how we're going to do things going forward, or only for this finite amount of time?
This would be going forward. This would be until the Constitution is changed.
I don't feel the language says that.
Okay, I'll let my parliamentarian look at that for the amendment.
Thank you.
And John Prane will advise. Who was the other person who asked for recognition?
QB. Eric Quinney Bernard.
Eric Quinney Bernard, go ahead.
Just point of clarification. This isn't so much with the amendment, but just clarification. With nominating, the nominating committee of the conference is only focused on the positions of the conference positions, conference committees and officers. If committees, which I have heard, I have conversations with all the chairs of each of the committees, and the frustration that it's hard holding a meeting when so many people do not show up to your committee meeting. Those are the responsibilities of the associations to fill. And so I would encourage the chairs to be in contact with the moderators of the associations so the associations can take action. Fully understand the frustration. We all have it, and I've heard it. But as far as the conference, we feel, not conference nominating, we're filling just those positions that we at the annual meeting here would vote on. So.
Thank you, Eric. Any other
Point of
discussion?
order.
Yes, Mark.
Point of order. We are straying all over the place and confusing the issue. Right now, there is an amendment on the floor, and all things need to be directed at that amendment. We're getting off on the secondary issues that do need to be addressed, but are not focused on the amendment on the floor.
Thank you, Mark. I will ask John Prane if he has had a discussion with the parliamentarian yet.
David, I have sent a message. We have not communicated back and forth. I would just advise that we just have Marva address it directly or something. Chat is a slow method.
Marva, are you available?
I am available. However, I did not, I'm sorry, Jen, I don't see.
How about I will speak to it and then we'll let Marva make a ruling.
Go right
Oh,
ahead.
no, okay, it just came through.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It would be my understanding of the motion for two reasons, that it would only be between this meeting and the next, because really we only have the power to control that period. Anything longer would most likely require a bylaw or constitutional. We can't be binding on future annual meetings without changing the constitution or bylaws. That would be my understanding.
I believe you. I probably misspoke. You're probably right.
And I'm going, this is Marva. I'm going to say first that I thought it was my understanding that today would only be discussion and not taking the actual vote. The second point that I would want to make is it was my understanding based upon what David read, that the current treasurer would be available for 90 days. I think that being the case, if you move forward with the 90 days and do your motion accordingly, then that will give you time to look at your bylaws and the needed bylaws changes. But your office will not be vacant. And that position is too important to be vacant for any amount of time.
Yeah. The reason for the motion today, Marla, is that we want to be able to pass the slate tomorrow. And the question is, if we find a person 2 weeks from now, unless we make a motion today, or during this meeting, we're going to have to come back and have another meeting of the entire conference. And that's problematic, trying to get 100 people together. So our intent here is to pass a motion that allows us to find somebody, have council approve them. I'm ahead of the motion now. This was not the motion to amend. So the motion to amend, however, is just that if we find somebody, they would have to, at the next conference meeting, submit their name again to be considered by the council, or conference, excuse me. I see two hands to the subject at hand only, please. First hand, I can't see who it is. Help me out.
Jana.
Jana?
David, I just want to alert you to the fact that if we are going to amend this motion today, or amend this vote that you want to take today, it may have to be delayed a little bit because we will have to change the language in the original motion that is set to be voted on. And that's taking us a little bit more time than expected to change that poll. And
That's
your
fine.
next person to speak is Jan Peters.
Thank you, Jan Peters. Go ahead.
Well, I guess I don't have the ability since I didn't actually write the amendment, the suggested one. But if this is going to mess things up, my feeling is that I would just withdraw my suggestion.
Hank Merriman, you made the motion. It is up to you whether you want to withdraw it or continue it.
I see no need to withdraw. I think this is a necessary part of this motion, specifically because we're putting power to the conference council that remains with the conference delegates. So here the conference council has the right to act to appoint, but the conference itself follows through with the election. Two, I think, especially with the balance of terms, having the president and vice president elected in year A and the other positions elected in year B, it's necessary to have this division maintained across, so we have that feathering continue to appoint somebody to a position, have them elected off cycle, that's just going to make the cycles continue to be systematically off into the future. I'm fine to have this come to a vote and be defeated, but I do not want to withdraw the motion.
Fair enough. Thank you. Any other discussion then before we vote? Don't want to circumvent anybody.
I can't raise my hand because I'm a co-host. This is John Prane. My understanding is, and I'm going to ask Hank for clarification and others, the motion as it is right now still says to the first available meeting, not the first annual meeting. Am I correct? So right now, I think I would be speaking against it and voting against it because I just don't want it to be at any meeting. I would sure like to see it at an annual meeting.
Does the conference meet at other times?
Well, if
All
this
conference
we were to have
business
a
is done at
special
an annual meeting.
it could, in theory, for some other reason, you could, could be interpreted as saying, well, we're meeting to vote on associate conference minister for something, and like say in August. Now we got to do it.
I would believe that power would lie with the agenda, and if that was the will of the people to put it on the agenda, that would ride with the agenda as any other items before the conference.
I recognize your intent that would be the next annual celebration, Hank, so I appreciate that. But potentially, you're also right, John, that if we had a meeting in June of next year for the entire conference, we could add it to that agenda and probably would, because it would be the next available. So no issues with me on that.
I'm fine to change available to annual if John Prane, who was the second on that one? Grant?
I'm fine with changing it too.
If the second agrees with it, I'm fine with that.
Sarah, are you in a position to be able to put that on the screen?
This is Connie. Do we need a second for that?
No, we don't. It was already seconded by the person who seconded it before. Thank you, Connie.
Can I clarify the motion to amend before I add it in the chat?
Absolutely.
So I've changed it to say that the person appointed to the position be subject to election by the conference at the next annual meeting and fill the term of the position to which they were appointed. Is that correct?
That Hank gives us a thumbs up, so that is correct. Thank you for your input, Marva, John, Hank, Jan. It's important that we talk about these things, and there's no right or wrong here. So that's what we are, a diverse conference. We don't always have to agree. Okay. So do we have a poll ready? Excuse me.
I will need a moment to create it. So
ahead.
Give me a moment.
Go ahead and do that. So after that is done, the next item that we want to talk about is, because we're not, when we vote tomorrow on the slate, well, I'll just wait. I don't want to get too much on your plate right now. The motion we're going to be talking about is the motion to amend. That's all we're talking about. We're not talking about the actual motion to have this done by the conference council. We're talking about the motion to amend. Everybody clear on that? We're grateful for Sarah for being here today to help us do this. The thing about Zoom is you don't get to wave your, we could do one where you wave your hands, by the way, but with this many people, it's a little more difficult. But once you get the poll done, this can be very fast. And a reminder while we're waiting that tonight at 7 o'clock, and that link is in your instructions you got yesterday, I will be taking my tie off and changing my shirt and pouring up a cold drink. It will not be this. It will be something else. There will be no agenda other than to visit, get to know each other, and have a great time. And that will go on for at least 2 hours. And depending upon what time everybody's done at that point, we may continue for a little while longer or not. That's called time on my porch. And for me, that's very important. I have 3 porches. One of them is on my front porch, which this time of year, I don't use much. The second one is my back porch outside, which I use again, but not very much this time of year. But there's one right here next to me downstairs that is, I call the dungeon because that's, my wife calls it the man club, but it's not. The man cave. It's not, it's a dungeon because I have to come down here in the basement. But I still have fun.
Jana,
David, the motion to amend is prepared and ready to go.
Okay, let's go ahead and put that on. Any quiet, just go ahead and put that on first, please. Don't vote yet, please. All right, so the motion reads, do you approve the amendment to the motion? That's all we're talking about, is the amendment to the motion on the floor to add that the person appointed to the position be subject to election by the conference at the next annual meeting and fill the term of the position to which they were appointed. The yes or no, some of you have already started voting, so please vote now. If you're in the chat, please send a chat to Jana.
No, send a text, please.
Text, thank you.
In case you are confused, I've pasted the original motion and the amendment to the original motion in the chat so that there is clarity on the issue.
Thank you. About 10 more seconds. Jana, would you add? Polls are now closed.
Yes, we have 78 yes, and we have 8 no.
Okay, so the motion passes to amend. So this is amended. Jana, if I understand you and Sarah correctly, you're not ready to vote on this today. We'll have to do it tomorrow.
Well, you voted on the motion, but we have to create now the original. We have to create the original one again.
Okay. So with your permission, John, I probably need a motion to table this for right now, don't I? The motion.
I have added to the original motion in the polls as amended, so we should be good to go.
Perfect. Okay. So we will now continue discussion on the original motion as amended, which is to allow the conference council, the substance of it is to allow the conference council to select the council based upon a person based upon the nominating committee's recommendation. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I will ask for the vote.
I've been asked to share the amended motion in the chat, so give me a moment and I will share that before we do the official vote.
People have already started voting. I can't stop them from voting.
All right, well, I will share it anyway.
I'll wait till after you've posted it to close. I will give it time. But if you already voted, that's fine. And remember, until I end the poll, you can change your vote. Chuck Maney's probably shaking his head saying, I'm sure glad I didn't have to put up with this when I had my last meeting. But I appreciate everybody's patience. I appreciate the way you're working with us. We're learning. This will help us on the next annual meeting, the next meeting that we have. I think we're getting better each time, and the input is very helpful. So thank you very much. There is the amended motion. I will give 30 more seconds, 45 more seconds to those who might not have read it completely. It is 3:27, 22 seconds, and I'll wait until 3:28. Okay. I will end the poll. Jana, are you ready to share your results as well?
Yes, final results are 82 yes, or I'm sorry, 83 yes and 3 no.
Okay, so that motion passes. Thank you very much for your help on that. I have one more motion that I'd like to discuss today. I think the third one can wait until tomorrow, if I've got my notes right here. And that has to do specifically when we elect this slate, because we don't have a treasurer. I mentioned Ernie has agreed to serve for 90 days, but he cannot do that without your approval. So I am putting that as a separate motion, suggesting that as a separate motion that reads this way. Ernie Potter is authorized to continue to serve in the position of Illinois Conference Treasurer until such time as the Illinois Conference Council elects his successor, or for a period of time not to exceed 90 days, whichever period of time is shorter. And my reason for that is I have talked to Ernie, who has agreed to those terms. Ernie's not on the call today because he's driving home from his place in Arizona, but he has agreed to that. So I would entertain a motion.
If you're, so this is Mark Binder. I make that motion.
Thank you, Mark. Was there a second to that, please?
I'll second it.
Who is that? Hank, is that you?
No, it's Jess.
Jeff, thank you. I'm sorry, I can't see everybody. Jeff who?
Oh, Jesse. I'm sorry, David. Jesse Knox. Reverend Knox.
Oh, Jesse Knox. I'm sorry, Jesse.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Jesse. I know you're there. I just can't see you. Okay,
No
Jesse
problem.
Knox. So that we have a motion and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, are we ready to put the motion up on the board, Sarah?
That one
Yes.
is already going the polls and the full wording of the motion is in the chat.
Would you like me to launch, David?
Yes, go ahead and launch, please. All right, if you would, go ahead and vote. We'll allow 1 minute for that. Any other discussion or any other getting ready to close the poll? Poll is now closed. Jana, would you add to your results, please?
Yes, we have 87 yes, 0 no.
All right, Ernie will be happy to know that he got the only unanimous vote of the day. And he well deserves it. Thank you, Ernie, and thank all of you for that. I believe that are the motions related to treasures that we have for today. We now have I missed something. I know I missed it.
Chalice Awards.
Yes, but I've talked about Terrell Murph, haven't I? I did talk about Terrell.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And we did talk about Fab, and this is enough. So I haven't missed anything. Oh, good. I am on schedule. Perfect. I made the schedule, so I should be. All right. we're very excited to be able to talk and reissue the Chalice Award this year. We did actually have Chalice Awards last year. We just didn't communicate it because of all the rush of COVID and everything else. So we're going to actually present you with the Chalice Award winners for 2020 and 2021 today. And we will spend some time next year because we've got time now to work on it, trying to improve that program as well. So Jana, go ahead and launch that if you would, please.
The Illinois Conference established the Chalice Awards to recognize individuals in the conference who have demonstrated outstanding and exceptional leadership in the conference and their association over a significant period of time. A review of past recipients shows that for many years, each association was represented with a recipient. However, in recent years, there was a conscious decision made by the leadership of the conference to shift to Illinois Conference-based recipients rather than association-based recipients. It is anticipated that there will be years when all 5 associations will be represented among the recipients, and there will be years when only 1 or 2 individuals will be recognized. Today, we honor the 2020 Chalice Award recipients who were not honored last year due to COVID, and we honor the 2021 recipient. Our 2020 Chalice Award recipients are Mary Newcomb and Janice Blickhand. We celebrate the ministry of Mary Newcomb and present her with a 2020 Chalice Award. Mary Newcomb is a member of First Congregational Church in Moline in the Western Association. She has long provided leadership in her local church as a Sunday school teacher, confirmation sponsor, moderator, and in many other roles. In the Western Association, Mary served on the Association Council and the Committee on Ministry, including 2 years as co-chair. Mary brought skill and expertise to the Conference Personnel Committee, the Finance Administration and Business Committee, to the Annual Celebration Planning Committee, and to the Conference Council. In 2012, Mary joined the Executive Committee of the Conference Council as the second Vice President of the Conference. Followed by a term as first Vice President, Mary served as the Conference President from June 2014 to June 2015. In the years since, Mary has continued to be a leader and trustworthy colleague and volunteer in our shared ministries. As a delegate to General Synod, she has helped first-time Synod delegates get oriented with the complexity of this role. In 2013, Synod in Long Beach, delegates were invited to give $1,000 each to support a nascent fund for planting new church congregations in the United Church of Christ. Mary created a beautiful quilt and sold raffle tickets for it at Pilgrim Park, Conference Council meetings, Tower Hill Association meetings, and the conference annual celebration. The quilt was won by a regular user of Pilgrim Park Camp. The fund received over $1,000 from Mary's commitment to the task. Recently, Mary completed intensive training to coach pastors and congregations participating in the Thriving Pastors and Revitalizing Churches program. She is currently a volunteer for the Realm Project, as well as ad hoc working groups and various task forces. Mary's passion for the Church of Jesus Christ is reflected in the generosity of spirit and her willingness to share her gifts throughout the conference.
It's my privilege and my distinct pleasure to present the Chalice Award to one of our 2020 awardees, Mary Newcomb. Mary, congratulations.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. She really deserves this.
I am flabbergasted, honored, and humbled to receive this Chalice Award. It has been a privilege to meet all of my brothers and sisters across the Illinois Conference, and I cannot wait to see what God has in store for all of us. Thank you.
It is with gratitude and thanksgiving that we present Mary Newcomb with a 2020 Chalice Award. We celebrate the ministry of Janice Blickhand and present her with the 2020 Chalice Award. Janice Blickhand of First Congregational Church in DeKalb is also a recipient of the 2020 Chalice Award. In her home church, Janice taught Sunday school and served on the Board of Christian Education, Funds Development Committee, Stewardship Committee, and the Board of Trustees. She later served as assistant moderator and moderator. Janice initiated fellowship dinners to raise funds for local social service agencies and instituted a wildly successful Christmas cookie walk. For 40-plus years, Janice has sung in the chancel choir. While serving on Prairie's Committee on Ministry, Janice recognized depression, loneliness, and anxiety in the stories ministers shared, and she determined that support for pastors was a critical need. She brought this passion to her service as second and first vice president of the Illinois Conference and president from June 2012 to June 2013. In 2014, Janice engaged leaders from Advocate Healthcare, the Samaritan Center for Congregations, and clergy and lay leaders in Fox Valley and Prairie associations to create a plan to support mental health resources for pastors. This planning led to a series of 7 one-day events for Prairie pastors. These events, in turn, formed the foundation for 4 Prairie spring and fall meetings in which innovative thinking like Theory U and the art of hosting was introduced to build support for pastors and congregations. Janice's impact on the conference left a lasting legacy. We now call our annual meeting the Annual Conference Celebration, reflecting Janice's intent to celebrate the positive happenings in the conference. She renamed workshops Energizers to bring vitality to these staples of annual meetings everywhere. More significantly, she encouraged the adoption of a missional budgeting process, and she pressed the conference to recognize the diversity in geography, racial identity, ethnicity, languages used in worship, gender identity, and LGBTQI affirmations among our congregations.
It's a tremendous pleasure and a real privilege to award this chalice to Janice Blickhand, one of our 2 2020 Chalice Award honorees. Janice, you deserve this.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. I don't really see myself as an outstanding person, but I respect you so much in what you do for the conference, the association, and for local churches. I think because of that, all of us try harder to help wherever we can and whenever we can. Thank you.
We celebrate the ministry of the Reverend Thomas Norwalk and present him with the 2021 Chalice Award. Tom was called to the Illinois Conference in June of 2001 to serve as the Eastern Association minister. He was presented at the conference meeting in June and began his ministry in the Eastern Association in August 2001. When the conference staffing was reduced in 2010, Reverend Norwalk began serving the Western Association jointly with the Reverend Kathy Laws. In the Eastern and Western Associations, Tom's service included staffing search and call for congregations seeking new pastoral leadership. He brought wisdom, guidance, and clarity to the committees on ministry and the association councils in the regions he served. Tom brought insight to the nominating committees of the Eastern and Western Associations and as a member of the Western Association's Leonhard Grant Committee. Tom was a friend, pastor, and mentor to pastors, attending and supporting the monthly meetings of clergy clusters in both associations. Reverend Norwalk counseled with clergy and congregations whenever assistance was requested. He served on the leadership team for the creative and innovative new church start known as Jubilee Farms in Clinton, Illinois. In the Illinois Conference, Tom assumed staffing responsibilities with the women in church and society, including their yearly women's retreats. He provided leadership in the Illinois Conference Educators organization, later known as Partners in Education. Reverend Norwalk brought his extensive leadership skills to staffing the Angola Partnership Team and traveled with the Illinois delegation to Angola in 2009. He served on the Tuthill Commission and was one of the staff members assisting the annual planning committee for the annual celebration of the conference. Along with other associate conference ministers, Tom served as support to delegates to General Synod every 2 years and assisted in the training of General Synod delegations. On several occasions, Tom provided generous hospitality to visitors from Angola to the Illinois Conference, driving them to guest speaking and preaching engagements throughout the conference, arranging housing and transportation and medical care when necessary. Reverend Norwalk was trained as a mission interpreter for the National Global Ministries team of the United Church of Christ's wider church ministries. He served as staff liaison to the Illinois Conference mission team for several years, providing information about our global ministries while encouraging congregations to support global mission projects. A few summers, Tom even served as a volunteer counselor for tenderfoot camps at Pilgrim Park. Tom brought joy to his work, and he spread care, love, and joy throughout the conference through his many ministries. The Reverend Thomas Norwalk served with faithfulness and integrity in these many roles until his retirement from the staff of the conference at the end of May 2019.
It is such an honor and such a privilege to present to the Reverend Tom Norwalk this chalice as the 2021 awardee of the Illinois Conference Chalice Award. Tom, congratulations.
Thank you, Kathy.
You are so very deserving.
Thank you. It is such an honor to receive this special gift in honor of the years of service in the Illinois Conference. It was a joy to work with so many different people across the association boundaries, but especially I have to say thank you to the Eastern and Western associations for their special gifts of service to the ways that we work together in many ways to further the gifts of the conference to all people. So thank you so much for this honor, and it's a great blessing to receive your gift of service to me. Thank you.
It is with gratitude and thanksgiving for years of outstanding and exceptional leadership to the Illinois Conference and its associations and churches that we present the Reverend Thomas Norwalk with the 2021 Chalice Award. The Illinois Conference is blessed with many leaders who have servant hearts. It is with heartfelt thanks that we express appreciation to our 2020 Chalice Award recipients, Janice Blickhan and Mary Newcomb, and our 2021 Chalice Award recipient, the Reverend Thomas Norwalk, while recognizing their ministries. Thank you for your service and dedication to the local church, our associations, the Illinois Conference, and the wider church. You inspire us to greater acts of love and service.
So first of all, a big hand for all three of our winners for 2020 and 2021. And also a big hand for Tim White, Reverend Tim White, who put this together and has spent a lot of time doing that. And we appreciate that, Tim. We're very blessed to have so many talented people in the Illinois Conference all over the state. And you have all done a great job. And we're now reaching the point where we're almost done with our first day of business. And we've got the lion's share of the work done. Quite frankly, my goal was to be at the position at 4 o'clock done today so that we could all take a break before 4:30 when John Dorhauer is going to be giving his keynote address. And I encourage you to catch that on the YouTube channel. And then tomorrow scheduled from 9 to 12. But if we have 100 people on at 9 o'clock, I believe we can finish the business of the conference much sooner than 12 o'clock and have the rest of the morning free to wait and prepare for the worship service. Question was asked about the slate of officers. Again, the slate of officers is on the drive and was presented to you previously. And we have not got any additions. Well, I shouldn't say that. Do we have any additions? And again, we're going to vote on this tomorrow, though. So I can't really do that, can I, till tomorrow, Marva, in terms of additions? I have to wait till tomorrow. So if there are additions, and I know of one possible addition that may be discussed tomorrow, we will do that then. But we do have a slate of nominees that were presented. If you're interested in presenting somebody from the floor, you need to be prepared to do that tomorrow. What we will do tomorrow is we will start at 9 o'clock and we will begin with, I just lost my place here. Hold on with me. This is what happens when you move your papers around during a call, is you end up with everything. We have three things tomorrow: the budget, and then the calling of Terrell Murph, and the slate of officers. So all three of those, again, should take a relatively small amount of time. I expect it will take less time today. We will not have any videos that I'm aware of tomorrow. It'll be strictly business, get her done, and then prepare for the worship service. We will have an installation service. The nominations will come last. So I want to remind you that when we started the meeting today, I said perfection is not required, faith is required. I'm a living example of that. I'm not comfortable doing a parliamentary meeting, but I'm certainly comfortable in leading a meeting. And I'm blessed to have Marva Campbell Pruitt and John Praying, as well as a number of you available. I'm blessed to have Sarah Lorbeck and Jana and Tim White and a number of other people who have been involved in the annual planning committee and have done a great job of getting us to this point. A lot of people work all year long just so that we can have a meeting of our conference, and we're grateful for that. With that, I would remind you 7 o'clock tonight, if you're so inclined, to join us for a very, very informal Zoom chat and fun time. And Marva, do I have to ask for a motion for recess, or can I just recess?
You don't have to have a motion. You would just call for recess by common consent.
Okay, so I call for a recess by common consent at 3:51 p.m. Thank you all for staying with us. Thank you for being here. Please be here tomorrow. If you know somebody that wasn't here, encourage them to be, so we can jump right on it tomorrow and move very quickly. Thank you. Have a good evening. Don't forget the worship or John Dorhauer's keynote speech at 4:30 today. Have a great day.